Some objects are cursed, some places are haunted. But what about the people who made a deal with the devil himself? Throughout history, whispers of dark pacts and unholy bargains have terrified and fascinated us. Could it really be possible? Could a signature in blood grant power, wealth, even immortality? Tonight we unveil the eerie tales of those who dared to make a deal with darkness and the horrifying price they paid. But before we summon these terrifying stories, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and tell us in the comments, do you believe in deals with the devil? Johann Georg Faust, the man who inspired a legend. On a storm-lashed night in the 16th century, deep within the flickering candlelight of his study, Johann Georg Faust scrawled the final lines of a contract, his quill trembling, but not from fear. He had waited for this moment, and so had the one standing behind him. Faust was no ordinary scholar. He was an alchemist, a magician, a man obsessed with power beyond human reach. He had studied the sacred and the forbidden, scouring ancient tomes that spoke of a way to command the world itself. But knowledge had its limits. He wanted more. He wanted dominion over fate. They say that on that night, the candle flames flickered unnaturally as he called out the name Mephistopheles. At first, only silence answered him. Then a voice, smooth as silk, dark as the abyss, whispered back. The deal was struck. 24 years of unlimited knowledge, pleasure, and power. In return, his soul would belong to the devil. At first, life was glorious. Faust performed miracles, defied kings, and basked in riches. But as the years slipped through his fingers like sand, an unshakable dread took root in his soul. His time was almost up. On the night his contract expired, the townspeople reported inhuman screams coming from his study. The walls trembled as if something inside was trying to escape, something not of this world. And then, silence. When they found him, the room was soaked in blood. His body was twisted beyond recognition, as if torn apart from within. Some say the devil came to collect his due personally. Would you sign your soul away for power, knowing the price you'd have to pay? Or do you think Faust's story was nothing more than a cautionary tale? Robert Johnson, The Bluesman's Midnight Bargain. The Delta winds howled through the Mississippi night, carrying with them the scent of damp earth and forgotten souls. Under the pale glow of the moon, a lone figure stood at a crossroads, his guitar slung over his back, his heart pounding with desperation. Robert Johnson had music in his soul, but his fingers betrayed him. No matter how hard he tried, he could barely play a decent tune. Laughter followed him from every juke joint, whispers of how he should just give up. But Robert wasn't ready to quit. He wanted greatness. He wanted to be the best bluesman the world had ever known. And then, on that fateful night, he met a man. The figure emerged from the shadows, tall and lean, eyes burning with a wicked glint. The devil himself, or one of his servants. No one knows for sure. Without a word, he took Robert's guitar, tuned it, and played a song so hauntingly beautiful that the trees seemed to shudder. When he handed the guitar back, Johnson felt something shift deep in his bones. The deal was done. In the months that followed, Robert Johnson reappeared at the very juke joints where they had mocked him. But this time, he played like a man possessed. His fingers danced across the strings with impossible speed, and his voice carried a sorrow so deep it sent chills down spines. Crowds gathered, mesmerized. It was as if he had lived and breathed the blues for 100 lifetimes. But whispers followed him. Some swore they saw shadowy figures lurking near him as he played, dark shapes that seemed to watch and listen. Others claimed that, in the dead of night, Johnson would sit alone, strumming his guitar and murmuring to something unseen. Then, just as quickly as his legend rose, it came to a violent end. At only 27 years old, Robert Johnson collapsed, writhing in agony after drinking whiskey at a juke joint. Some said he was poisoned by a jealous man, but those who were there swore he screamed about hellhounds coming for him before he took his final breath. Was it just a tragic end to a brilliant musician, or did the devil come to collect his due? And the real question is, if you stood at the crossroads, would you take the deal? Urbain Grandier, the priest who became a devil's pawn. The air in the town of Loudun, France was thick with the scent of burning incense, but it could not mask the stench of fear. It was 1634, a time when whispers of the devil carried as much weight as the word of God. And at the center of the town's most terrifying scandal stood Urbain Grandier, a priest with a silver tongue, a defiant spirit, and, some claimed, a pact with Satan himself. Grandier was no ordinary priest. He was handsome, charismatic, and dangerously persuasive. His sermons were mesmerizing, his confidence unshakable. But his arrogance made enemies. He openly defied church authority, mocked the vow of celibacy, and seduced women in secret. The clergy despised him. The townspeople were divided, some enchanted by his words, others whispering that no mere man could wield such power over hearts and minds. Then came the nuns. At the Ursuline convent, the sisters began to behave strangely. Convulsions, wild shrieking, unholy visions. They claimed they were possessed, tormented by demons sent by none other than Urbain Grandier. The accusations were relentless. They said he had signed a pact in blood, offering his soul to the devil in exchange for power. Grandier was arrested, dragged before a tribunal where his enemies had already decided his fate. They produced the proof, a document written in strange symbols, supposedly the very contract he had made with Satan. The parchment listed the names of demons he had invoked, with Lucifer himself as a witness. As Grandier stood in chains, the nuns performed a spectacle of possession in the courtroom, moaning, contorting, speaking in tongues. The crowd recoiled in horror. The church called for exorcisms, but instead of banishing the spirits, the rituals seemed only to confirm their claims. Despite his defiant protests of innocence, the verdict was inevitable: guilty. On August 18, 1634, Grandier was led to the stake. His body had already been broken by torture, his legs crushed beyond repair, his flesh seared with burning torches. But through the agony, he refused to confess. As the flames engulfed him, witnesses swore they heard a voice on the wind, a whisper, a laugh, or perhaps a curse. And the nuns? Their possessions mysteriously ceased after Grandier's execution, but many were left broken, hollow, as if something far darker had been at play. Was Urbain Grandier truly a servant of the devil, or was he the victim of a conspiracy fueled by fear, power, and religious hysteria? And the real question is, would you have believed his innocence, or would you have stood among the crowd as the flames rose? The tale of Count de Saint-Germain, the man who never died. Imagine a man who never aged, a man who appeared throughout history, slipping through time like a shadow. His name was Count de Saint-Germain, and while some called him an alchemist, a mystic, or even a vampire, others believed something far more sinister, that he had made a pact with the devil himself. The first whispers of Saint-Germain began in the early 1700s. He was a nobleman of extraordinary wealth, dazzling charm, and inexplicable knowledge. He spoke multiple languages fluently, played the violin like a master, and painted with the skill of a Renaissance artist. He dined with kings, courted queens, and held secrets that no mortal man should have known. But there was one thing about him that unnerved those who met him. He never seemed to grow old. The Count would vanish for years, only to reappear decades later, looking exactly the same. No wrinkles, no gray hair, no signs of time's passage. Even those who had met him in their youth recognized him in old age, unchanged. People whispered that Saint-Germain had discovered the secret of immortality. Some said he was an alchemist who had unlocked the philosopher's stone, the key to eternal life. But others believed a darker truth, that he had struck a deal with the devil, trading his soul for endless time. Legends of Saint-Germain only grew as the years passed. In 1789, during the chaos of the French Revolution, he reportedly warned Queen Marie Antoinette of the coming disaster, decades after he should have been dead. Some say he fled to Transylvania, his existence fading into rumor, yet he was seen again. In the 1800s, a French writer claimed to have met a man identical to Saint-Germain, unchanged in appearance. In 1902, a theosophist named Annie Besson reported a mysterious figure calling himself Saint-Germain, sharing knowledge no one should possess. And in the 1970s, a man bearing his name and uncanny resemblance allegedly appeared in secretive esoteric circles, claiming to have lived for centuries. Could he still be walking among us? Could he be watching from the shadows, his infernal contract still binding him to this world? Or was Saint-Germain nothing more than an elaborate myth, a ghost of history whispering across time? And the real question is, if you had the chance to live forever, would you take it, no matter the cost? Giuseppe Tartini, the devil's violinist music, has always had a strange connection to the supernatural. Some melodies enchant, others haunt. But one piece of music, so eerily beautiful, so impossibly complex, was said to have been given to a man by the devil himself. That man was Giuseppe Tartini, an 18th century violinist and composer. By all accounts, he was talented. But one fateful night in 1713, he had a dream that would change his life and music forever. Tartini recounted the story years later, his voice trembling with both awe and fear. He claimed that in his dream, the devil appeared in his room, a dark, elegant figure with an air of impossible power. The devil offered him a deal. Intrigued, Tartini handed his violin to the Prince of Darkness himself, and what he heard next shook him to his core. The devil played. The melody was unlike anything Tartini had ever heard. Dark yet divine, furious yet flawless, weaving notes together in ways human hands never could. It was music beyond comprehension, something no mortal could conceive. When Tartini awoke, his hands trembled as he reached for his violin, desperate to recreate the unholy masterpiece he had heard. He played frantically, trying to capture even a fragment of that infernal song, and thus was born the Devil's Trill Sonata, a piece so complex, so otherworldly, that many believed it was truly written by the devil himself. The rapid trills, the haunting melodies, the impossibly fast passages, it was unlike anything that had ever been composed. Even Tartini admitted that his sonata was but a shadow of what he had heard in his dream. Some believe Tartini's soul was forever marked by that night. He spent the rest of his life obsessing over his music, haunted by the perfection he had once heard but could never recreate. And when he finally died, rumors spread that his soul had been collected, just as the devil had promised. Even today, musicians who attempt to play the devil's trill describe a feeling of unease, as if unseen eyes are watching. Some say strange shadows flicker in the corners of the room. Others claim they hear a faint whisper beneath the notes, as if something is playing along, something not entirely human. Was Tartini's dream simply a trick of the mind? Or did he truly strike a bargain with the devil, exchanging his soul for music that would outlive him? And the real question is, if the devil offered you a gift beyond human talent, would you take it, knowing the price? Dr. John Fian, the Sorcerer of Scotland. On a bitterly cold night in 1590, a storm raged along the coast of Scotland, its furious winds nearly capsizing the ship carrying King James VI and his new bride, Anne of Denmark. But this was no ordinary storm. This was a curse, a malevolent force conjured by witches in league with the devil himself. At the heart of this dark conspiracy stood Dr. John Fian, a schoolmaster from Haddington, who harbored a far more sinister reputation. Though he taught children by day, whispers spread through the village that he practiced black magic by night. Strange fires burned outside his home, and those who crossed him found misfortune creeping into their lives like a shadow that refused to leave. When the witch trials of North Berwick began, Fian was arrested under suspicion of witchcraft and sorcery. The accusations were staggering. He had led a coven of witches, conjured spirits, and most damning of all, he had made a pact with the devil himself. Under brutal torture, Fian refused to confess, his lips sealed tighter than the iron shackles around his wrists. But the interrogators were relentless. His fingernails were ripped from his hands, his body was crushed in the boots, a device that shattered his legs with every turn of the screws. And yet, through unimaginable agony, he never broke. One night, something truly terrifying happened. The prison guards awoke to find Fian's cell door wide open. No one had unshackled him, and yet he had escaped his chains. He was found shortly after, wandering the countryside in a daze. When questioned, he claimed that the devil himself had freed him. Whether it was a supernatural force or sheer willpower, his escape only confirmed the worst fears of the authorities. If he would not confess, then he would burn. And so, on January 27, 1591, Dr. John Fian was dragged to the stake, his once learned hands bound in rope. As the flames licked at his feet, he did not scream, did not beg. He merely stared into the crowd with a knowing gaze, as if he saw something no one else could. And as the fire consumed him, witnesses swore they heard laughter in the wind, a sound not of this world, deep and guttural, as if something had come to collect its due. Did Fian truly hold a pact with the devil? Or was he merely a victim of the witch hysteria that gripped Scotland? And more chillingly, if he had truly summoned something from beyond, did it ever leave? Would you dare to practice the dark arts, knowing what might come to claim you in the end? Jonathan Molton, the man with an ever-filling boot. The wind howled through the New Hampshire wilderness, rattling the windows of a grand estate that no man should have been able to afford. Inside sat Jonathan Molton, a man of wealth and legend, a man whose fortune came not from honest labor, but from a deal whispered about in fearful tones. Born in 1726, Molton was a soldier, a cunning businessman, and a man obsessed with riches. But in the late 1700s, something changed. His fortune grew impossibly fast. His once modest home transformed into a lavish mansion filled with golden trinkets and fine silks. The locals began to whisper, "No man gets rich that fast without help from below." The legend goes that one night Molton stood in the darkness of his study, holding a single candle, whispering words not meant for human ears. He had summoned something, a figure with eyes like burning embers, its presence so suffocating that the flames in the hearth dimmed. The devil himself had come, and Jonathan Molton, ever the shrewd negotiator, struck a dangerous bargain. He asked for wealth beyond measure, gold that would never run dry. In return, his soul was to be collected at death. The devil agreed, and his payment was simple. Each month, Satan would fill Molton's boot with gold coins. But greed is never satisfied. Molton, clever as he was, devised a trick to outsmart hell itself. Instead of using a normal boot, he took a pear, cut out the sole of one, and placed it over an open hole in the floor. When the devil came to pour the gold inside, it kept falling through, endlessly. For months the trick worked. His wealth grew, his fortune multiplied. But Molton forgot one thing. You do not deceive the devil and walk away unscathed. One fateful night, a fire consumed his grand mansion. No one saw the flames begin. No lanterns had been knocked over, no candles left burning. And yet, the fire roared unnaturally fast, devouring everything in its path. When the embers cooled and the smoke cleared, Molton was gone, his body never found. Not a trace of him remained, not even his bones. Only a single charred boot lay in the ruins of his estate. Some say the devil had finally claimed what was his. Others whisper that Molton still walks, his soul never fully taken, trapped between worlds, a cursed spirit forever searching for gold that will never again be his. Would you make a deal with the devil for unlimited riches, knowing that one day he will come to collect? Or do you think you could outwit him before the flames drag you down? Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess. The moon cast a pale glow over the towering walls of Chakti's castle, its crumbling stones holding secrets too ghastly to be forgotten. The villagers whispered her name with hushed fear, Elizabeth Bathory, a woman of noble blood and unspeakable horror. Born in 1560 into one of the most powerful families in Hungary, Elizabeth was wealthy, beautiful, and intelligent. But beneath the veil of nobility lurked a monstrous obsession, one that would make her one of history's most notorious figures. The legend claims that Elizabeth wasn't just a sadistic murderer, she was something far worse. A woman who bathed in blood to stay young, a noble who made a pact with darkness itself. The story begins when a servant girl accidentally pulled Elizabeth's hair while brushing it. Enraged, Elizabeth struck her so hard that blood splattered onto her hand. As she wiped it away, she saw something impossible. The skin where the blood had touched looked younger, smoother. From that moment on, Elizabeth became obsessed with blood, convinced it was the key to eternal youth. What followed was a reign of terror that defied reason. Servant girls disappeared by the dozens, lured to the castle with promises of work but never seen again. The few who escaped spoke of horrors beyond imagination, of rooms where girls were drained of their blood, of torture devices that pierced, burned, and flayed. And in the center of it all was Elizabeth, smiling, serene, draped in crimson. Some say she didn't act alone, that she had loyal accomplices, witches, alchemists, even a demon lover, guiding her, whispering the secrets of dark magic. Others believe she had struck a deal with the devil himself, offering the lives of young women in exchange for eternal beauty. But no deal lasts forever. By 1610, the rumors could no longer be ignored. King Matthias II ordered an investigation, and when soldiers finally stormed Chaktice Castle, what they found shook them to their core. Blood-stained walls, emaciated girls, barely alive, chained to dungeon floors, and in a locked room, a massive stone tub still filled with the thick, clotted remains of her victims. Elizabeth was arrested, but she never stood trial. A noblewoman could not be publicly executed. Instead, she was walled inside her own castle, bricked into a single room with no doors, no escape. She lived there for 4 years, slowly wasting away, trapped inside the very prison she had created for others. Her last words before death? A whisper to the darkness, "I will return." To this day, Chaktice Castle remains haunted. Visitors report hearing screams in the wind, seeing shadowy figures in the ruins. Some even claim that on moonless nights, the Blood Countess still walks, searching for fresh victims. What do you think? Was Elizabeth Bathory just a mad woman, or had she truly uncovered the dark secret of eternal youth? And if she did, could she still be out there waiting? Niccolò Paganini, the devil's violinist. The candlelight flickered in the dimly lit concert hall as a lone figure stepped onto the stage. The crowd fell into a hushed silence, their eyes locked onto the man standing before them. Tall, gaunt, with sunken eyes and an eerie, almost skeletal appearance, he was more phantom than human. Then he lifted his violin. From the first note, the audience was spellbound. The sound that poured from his instrument was inhuman, fast, furious, and impossibly complex. His fingers danced across the strings with unnatural speed, playing music so intense, so otherworldly, that some swore it wasn't the work of a mortal man. This was Niccolò Paganini, the greatest violinist the world had ever known. But behind his genius, there lurked a dark legend, one that claimed his talents were not his own. A deal with the devil? Born in Genoa, Italy, in 1782, Paganini showed musical talent from an early age. But as he grew older, his skill became unnatural. He could play entire compositions on a single string, conjure sounds never before heard on the violin, and perform with such intensity that audiences would weep or faint from sheer emotion. His fingers were long, almost spider-like, stretching across the strings in ways that seemed impossible for any normal human hand. Some whispered that his abilities were not the result of practice, but rather a pact with the devil himself. The rumors only grew when people noticed his appearance, his hollow cheeks, ghostly pale skin, and piercing, almost hypnotic gaze. His playing was so intense that his bowstrings would snap mid-performance, yet he would continue, seemingly unaffected. At times he played so passionately that his violin seemed to burn in his hands, the strings glowing like embers. Audiences gasped as his shadow stretched unnaturally behind him, twisting, shifting, sometimes appearing to have horns. The cursed violin. It wasn't just his skill that fueled the rumors, it was his violin. Some claimed Paganini didn't play an ordinary instrument, but one crafted from the bones of a murdered lover. Others whispered that it was given to him by the devil himself, enchanted with supernatural power. One chilling story tells of a concert in Vienna where, as Paganini played, a dark figure appeared behind him, invisible to all but a few. Some claimed it was Satan himself, guiding Paganini's hands, reveling in the eerie, unearthly music. His fame grew, but so did the fear. People swore they saw spirits hovering around him as he played, faces twisted in agony. Women in the audience fainted from fright, and some even claimed that hearing him play was dangerous, like opening a door to something forbidden. The devil comes to collect. Despite his fame, Paganini's later years were filled with suffering. His health deteriorated, and his body became frail and twisted, as if something was slowly draining the life from him. As death crept closer, Paganini refused last rites from a priest, a final chilling sign that he had indeed sold his soul. When he died in 1840, the church refused to bury him on consecrated ground, fearing his soul was damned. His body was moved from grave to grave, wandering in death just as he had in life. Even today, his violin is said to be cursed. Those who try to play it report strange whispers, cold chills, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Some even claim to have seen a shadowy figure standing nearby, watching, waiting. Was Paganini truly a genius? Or was he something more? Something unnatural? If you could master any skill beyond human ability, but at a terrible price, would you make the deal? The Mysterious Case of Jack Parsons, the Rocket Scientist and the Occult. The night sky above Pasadena, California, burned with an eerie glow as an explosion rocked a quiet house on Orange Grove Avenue. It was June 17, 1952, and the man who had revolutionized rocket science, Jack Parsons, was lying in the wreckage of his home laboratory. His body shattered, his face burned beyond recognition. Some called it a tragic accident, the result of a chemical experiment gone wrong. But others whispered of something far more sinister. A man who had danced too close to the abyss, who had called upon forces beyond human understanding, and who had finally paid the price for his dark dealings. Because Jack Parsons wasn't just a brilliant scientist, he was also a devoted occultist, a man who worshipped Satan, invoked demons, and sought to open doorways to other worlds. And some say he succeeded. The rocket scientist who believed in the devil. Jack Parsons was a visionary, a genius, and a rebel. In the 1930s and 40s, he co-founded Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, a cornerstone of modern rocket science. Without him, there would be no moon landing, no space exploration, no NASA as we know it. But while other scientists worked with formulas and physics, Parsons was summoning spirits, chanting incantations, and performing rituals in the California desert. He believed science and magic were two sides of the same coin, that rocketry and the occult were deeply connected. His obsession with the supernatural led him to join Aleister Crowley's infamous cult, the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. Crowley, known as the Great Beast and the world's most notorious Satanist, became his mentor from afar, encouraging Parsons to push deeper into the dark arts, rituals, blood sacrifices, and forbidden knowledge. By the 1940s, Parsons wasn't just building rockets. He was performing elaborate rituals to summon angels, demons, and interdimensional entities. He believed in sex magic, blood sacrifices, and invoking dark forces to gain supernatural wisdom. His most infamous ritual was the Babylon Working, a terrifying attempt to conjure the whore of Babylon, a goddess foretold to bring the apocalypse. Alongside the controversial sci-fi writer and conman L. Ron Hubbard, who would later found Scientology, Parsons spent weeks in the desert, performing dark ceremonies to summon an entity from beyond reality. After one particularly intense night, a strange woman appeared at his home, a red-haired beauty named Marjorie Cameron, whom Parsons believed was the living incarnation of the spirit he had summoned. But had he really summoned a goddess, or had he invited something far darker into his life? A life spiraling out of control. As Parsons delved deeper into black magic, his career and personal life collapsed around him. The U.S. government labeled him a security risk, suspecting his ties to occult groups and foreign agents. He lost his job, his research, and his standing in the scientific community. But he didn't stop. He began working on even more dangerous experiments, claiming he had discovered secrets that could tear open the fabric of reality itself. Some say he was trying to open a literal portal to another dimension, one that would allow non-human entities to enter our world. Then, on June 17, 1952, something went terribly wrong. The explosion that ended it all. Or did it? Neighbors heard a massive explosion rock Parsons' home. When they arrived, they found him lying in a pool of blood, his right arm blown off, his legs shattered. Incredibly, he was still alive, whispering strange words before finally succumbing to his wounds. Some claimed it was an accident, that he had mishandled a volatile chemical, but others believed something far more chilling, that Parsons had unleashed something beyond his control, and it had come to collect its due. His final project, unfinished at the time of his death, was something he cryptically called the Black Mirror, a device he believed would allow him to communicate with non-human entities. Some say he had already made contact, and that the explosion wasn't an accident, but a sacrifice. Even in death, Parsons' influence lingers. People who visit his former home report strange occurrences, shadowy figures, disembodied whispers, and the unshakable feeling of being watched. His work in rocketry paved the way for humans to leave Earth, but his work in the occult, perhaps it opened doors we were never meant to cross. Would you dare to unlock the secrets Parsons sought? If you could discover forbidden knowledge, but at the risk of losing your soul, would you take that chance? Or was Jack Parsons simply a madman who believed in his own darkness? A wish granted, a price demanded. Those who make deals with the devil always think they've won, but in the end, the house never loses. Maybe it's just superstition, or maybe the devil is always waiting for his next signature in blood. Would you ever risk it? Let us know in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and join us for more terrifying tales. After all, there are plenty more deals still waiting to be made, so